She thought she owned the plane, but she had no idea who she was talking to. Inside the business class cabin of an Air France flight to Ouagadougou, a woman in a shimmering silver dress, dripping with diamonds, snapped her fingers loudly. She barked in French, "Move! I need this seat for my bag," her voice sharp, entitled, cutting through the hum of the plane. The man she was pointing at, dressed in a simple dark jacket and red beret, sat calmly in seat 3B, looking out the window. He turned his head slowly, his eyes steady, unamused. That man was Ibrahim Traoré, the interim president of Burkina Faso, traveling back from a summit in Paris, blending in as always, no fanfare, just a few discreet guards in nearby seats. But this woman, a wealthy French heiress named Sophia Laurent, had no clue. Sophia stood over him, one hand on her hip, the other waving dismissively. Speaking in French, she continued, "Did you hear me? Move. I paid for this entire row to be empty, and I don't care who you are. My bag needs space, and you're in the way." Her tone dripped with arrogance, her diamond necklace sparkling under the cabin lights. Ibrahim tilted his head slightly, replying in French, his voice low, controlled. "Madam, this is my seat. I suggest you find another place for your bag." His words were calm, but there was a weight to them, a quiet authority that made a few passengers nearby glance over. Sophia scoffed, rolling her eyes. Still in French, she sneered. "Your seat? Do you even belong in business class? Look at you. I'm Sophia Laurent, heiress to the Laurent mining empire. I don't share space with people like you." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "You're probably in the wrong cabin. Why don't you go back to economy, where you belong?" The cabin grew quieter, a few passengers shifting uncomfortably in their seats. One of Ibrahim's guards, seated 2 rows back, tensed, his hand resting near his side, but Ibrahim raised a finger slightly, signaling him to stand down. Ibrahim's expression didn't change. He leaned back in his seat, folding his hands. In French, he said, "I belong exactly where I am, and I suggest you sit down before you embarrass yourself further." His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it now, a warning. Sophia laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "Embarrass myself?" she shot back in French. "You're the one who's embarrassing yourself, pretending you matter. I've dealt with men like you before. You think a uniform makes you important? I could buy this plane if I wanted to." She snapped her fingers again, pointing at a flight attendant nearby. "You, get this man out of my row. Now!" she demanded, her French sharp and commanding. The flight attendant, a young man named Pierre, hurried over, his face pale, clearly nervous. Also speaking French, he said, "Madam, sir, please, let's keep this calm. Can I see both of your boarding passes?" Ibrahim handed his over, without a word, his eyes never leaving Sophia's. She tossed hers at Pierre with a flick of her wrist. Pierre glanced at the passes, then froze, his eyes widening as he read Ibrahim's name and title. In French, he stammered, Madame Laurent, this gentleman is in his assigned seat, and he's a very important person." Sophia crossed her arms, smirking. "Important?" she replied in French. "More important than me? I doubt that. Who is he? Some low-level diplomat?" Pierre swallowed hard, lowering his voice, still in French. "No, madam. This is President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso." The words hit the cabin like a thunderclap. Sophia's smirk vanished, her face paling as if she'd been slapped. The passengers around them gasped, some whispering to each other, others staring in disbelief. Sophia stammered, her confidence crumbling. "President?" she said weakly in French. "No, that can't be right. He's just..." She gestured at Ibrahim's simple attire, unable to finish her sentence. Ibrahim stood up slowly, his presence suddenly commanding the entire cabin. He adjusted his beret, his gaze piercing as he looked down at Sophia. In French, he said, "You assumed I didn't belong here because of how I look. You thought your money gave you the right to disrespect me. But let me tell you something, Madame Laurent. In Burkina Faso, we value dignity over wealth. And you've just shown the world how little dignity you have." His voice was firm, each word deliberate, resonating with authority. Sophia took a step back, her hands trembling, clutching her bag now like a shield. I I didn't know," she said in French, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" Her earlier arrogance was replaced by panic. Ibrahim didn't respond. He turned to Pierre, nodding slightly. "Please ensure Madame Laurent finds a place for her bag," he said in French. "I'd like to enjoy the rest of my flight in peace." Pierre nodded quickly, ushering Sophia to her seat, her head lowered, her cheeks burning with shame. The cabin remained silent as Ibrahim sat back down, his guards now visibly alert, their eyes scanning the other passengers. No one dared to speak. Sophia sat in her seat, staring at the floor, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, the weight of her mistake sinking in. The plane continued its journey, the hum of the engines the only sound, as Ibrahim looked out the window again, his face calm, his point made without raising his voice. And that's the moment of how a wealthy heiress learned a hard lesson about respect, right in the middle of a flight she thought she owned. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to Legendary Stories and drop a comment below. What would you have done in Sophia's place? Let us know.